The positions of the four warrior twins in the sand painting express these four powers in appropriate sunwise motion around the sacred center. Since this is a mandala of warrior action, it begins with the twins' most potent emanation in the east and revolves to their most peaceful form, a northern pink-bodied warrior twin. Pink is used instead of white when dealing with potent situations. In the Navajo warriors' ceremony, there is a sand painting depicting the time when the twins had surmounted serious obstacles on their journey to their father's eastern home. In a version given by the chanter Jeff King, the four mountains depicted are colored not in the conventional order of east, south, west, north, white, blue, yellow, and black, but with the blue and yellow reversed. This, according to Joseph Campbell in his commentary on the right, switches the code from the normal potency, Navajo call it the blessing side of the chant, to a higher potency. Similarly, when in the legend the four warrior twins did their protective work at their highest level of intensity, they are depicted in their heroic potency, mandala code of east, south, west, north, black, blue, yellow, and white, or pink. A variation on the heroic potency code is black, yellow, blue, and pink or white, where along with east and north the colors of the southern and western quarters are interchanged. One might even venture to interpret the heroic potency color sequence in terms of the twins' qualities of power. The House of Many Points Sand Mandala is again our model. The eastern quarter, signifying the coordinating wind of mind and thought, is inhabited by the black-bodied monster slayer, making the mandala's leadership position one of fierce power. Fierce thoughts are thus needed to do the job depicted in the sand mandala. If Monster Slayer embodies the conquering warrior energy that protects and motivates Changing Woman to move to her new home in the west, then a blue reared within the mountain, his more mild emanation, is the supportive aspect of this warrior power and is appropriately based in the mandala's western reciprocal of east quarter of living and introspective thought. His color is blue because blue is subsidiary and complementary to black in Navajo spiritual aesthetics. The southern warrior, a yellow child born for water, abides in the realm of survival through action and planning. His powerful nurturing and enriching qualities are appropriate in this position. The northern quarter, normally the realm of dark, dangerous power, is mollified by the pink-bodied changing grandchild, suggesting that the composite actions of the four warriors will yield benign future results. What appears to be happening in the Navajo mandala system is a dialing of ideas and energies using a dialectical pattern of follower pairs. In the House of Many Points mandala shown above, the color schemes of the two axes making up the four quadrants remain intact, only shifted 90 degrees out of position. Thus the white-yellow scheme of east-west becomes north and south. The black-blue of north-south becomes east and west. One chanter expressed it this way: the position of the holy people on the directions is variable according to use, and provided two examples. One was a sand mandala scheme used for the installation of a new character. It is from the Blessing Way lineage. To the east is talking God, to the north is calling God, to the west is calling God, to the north is girl with one kernel of corn, and to the south is boy with one turquoise. In this setup, talking God and calling God are in their customary east-west positions, since they actively serve as tutelaries to the new chanter. The tutelaries to the south and north are boy with one turquoise, a stand-in for the sun-bearer, who in turn embodies the power of the noontime sun, and girl with one kernel of corn, who symbolizes the nighttime realm, and is considered by some Navajo as a metaphor for the moon-bearer. They, too, are in their customary positions according to the Blessing Way scheme. Joseph Campbell would have called this a normal potency scheme. Another sand painting is done during the branch of Blessing Way associated with planting crops. The holy people are shown in the following positions. The sun bearer is to the east, changing woman is to the west, calling god is to the north, and talking god is to the south. The eastern quarter, where thought and movement of things begin, is inhabited by the sun bearer. He is balanced in the west by his consort, changing woman. Both figures prominently in the teachings of the Blessing Way. They symbolize the role of the powers of sky and earth and of male and female in the creation of life. Talking God and calling God, therefore, take up the secondary positions of noontime and nighttime, south-north axis, from the standpoint of Navajo dialectics. Sunbearer and Talking God retain the appropriate leadership positions on their respective axes, while Changing Woman and Calling God remain in the follower's role. The position of the pairs has shifted in order to reflect the life-generating function of the rite. Variations of the mandala code, Tibetan examples. Two Tibetan spiritual systems use the fourfold mandala pattern to express qualities and processes in psychophysical transformation. The earliest Tibetan expression of the fourfold scheme of spiritual power is found in the commonplace prayer flags known as wind horse. They contain phrases requesting good health and fortune for the individual who sponsored the raising of the flags. Surrounding the printed invocation and a central image of the wind horse are woodblock printed renderings of four power animals: the forest tiger, snow lion, mythic eagle, and thunder dragon. They represent the four qualities that must be cultivated by a spiritual warrior. One interpretation, after the 8th Kamtrul Rinpoche of Tashi Yong, holds that these animals signify the attributes of King Gezar of Ling. The tiger is his mind, the snow lion his physical strength, the great eagle his wisdom, and the dragon his voice and great renown. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche taps into the deeper sense of the relationship between the prayer flag animals and body-mind in his teachings on spiritual warriorship. He explains that one's achieved virtues and qualities are reflected in one's total presence. This authentic presence of a warrior, he goes on, depends upon four qualities of body-mind. Trungpa calls these the four dignities, and they are symbolized by the four power animals at the corners of the prayer flag, cumulatively known as Tasing Kyungdruk, tiger, lion, eagle, dragon. The tiger, Ta, embodies the warrior's dignity that derives from meekness. Although it can be ferocious, the tiger gently makes its way through the jungle with quiet confidence. This meekness of demeanor is a form of modesty and of unself-consciously radiating one's inner light. Like the tiger, the warrior of meek, as Trungpa calls it, has unlimited potential energy and knows fully the vastness of the cosmos. Trungpa relates that he is not bloated or arrogant. Instead, he is humble, kind, and self-contained in relating to others. The snow lion, Sengye, is the most typically Tibetan of the four animals, being the national animal of Tibet. A male and female snow lion holding aloft the flaming triple gem of Buddhism adorn Tibet's national flag. They also are considered to be the spirit of the glaciers, where they are said to make their home. Their bushy mane, tail, and paw tufts are turquoise-colored, while the rest of their bodies are snow-white. Snow lions are so powerful that they are said to be able to leap playfully from one mountain peak to the next, and are so energized that they rebound and return to their starting place without having to physically touch the peaks. The energy that the snow lion brings to the spiritual warrior is that of perkiness. Perky is the joyful, youthful, and energized mind. Perky, too, is foregoing ahead trustingly with one's plans. Perkiness is the state in which the warrior is not captured by doubts. Therefore, he is humorous, uplifted, and perky in his dealings. The great eagle, Cha Kyung, is the ancient Inner Asian symbol of the vastness and power of the sky. It has become best known to the West through its South Asian form, the Garuda. Trungpa Rinpoche describes the great eagle as having hatched full-grown from its egg. It then soars directly into outer space, free from hope and fear. Such is the energy of the king of birds, which, translated into spiritual warriorship, is the dignity of outrageousness. The word outrageous originates in the Old French, outre, meaning beyond. How outrageous does the slang expression from America of the 1960s, meaning something almost beyond belief but wonderful. Likewise is the great eagle the outrageous symbol for the mind and energy that has gone beyond, way beyond the confines of our normal reality. The warrior of outrageousness embodies fearlessness and strength, and he is not trapped by the pettiness of hope and fear. So his vision becomes vast, and he is not afraid of making mistakes, continues Trungpa Rinpoche. Finally, among the boiling swirls of the thickest of thunderstorm clouds materializes the dragon, Druk. The clouds are its body, the thunder its voice, and the lightning its flickering tongue. It is the ultimate embodiment of the powers of celestial waters, but it is also very much of the earth. It sleeps out of the winter inside the earth, then rises skyward and blasts out torrents of rain from the clouds during the summer season. Although the dragon is frighteningly powerful, it is also beneficent, but in its dual qualities it is above all unfathomable. It symbolizes the dignity of inscrutability. It is inscrutable in its unhesitating and unspoken ability to rise to the occasion, confidently doing what needs to be done in order to achieve a dynamic world. Order. Trungpa Rinpoche calls this quality of the spiritual warrior the experience of fulfillment and uncontrived spontaneous achievement. His mind itself becomes as fathomless as space, so he attains complete mastery over the phenomenal world. So informed, we can now view the prayer flag through new eyes. The prayer flag shown in Figure 138, printed during the Wood Pig year, expresses the qualities of the four dignity animals through adjacent printed phrases. The qualities embodied in the four power animals of the prayer flag are aspects of the central spiritual animal, the wind horse. The wind horse represents to the untutored Tibetan the state of one's luck, lungta, and the Tibetan word for wind horse has come to mean luck. This state of one's luck, if one's wind horse is high or low at a particular moment, is actually a matter of the degree to which one achieves a spiritual warrior's authentic presence and profile of accrued merit. Just as the terrestrial horse bears the conventional warrior into battle, the wind horse bears the spiritual warrior into authentic presence past the many obstacles on the journey leading into the sacred world. And the wind horse / prayer flag's directional power animals embody the qualities of the universal Tibetan symbol of the spiritual warrior, King Gezar of Ling. Appropriately, King Gezar of Ling's steed was said to be a magical flying horse. The four dignity qualities of the aboriginal Tibetan warrior are quite analogous to those embodied by the two pairs of Navajo warrior twins. In turn, they compare quite well with the wisdom energies in the tantric system called the four yogas: pacifying, enriching, subjugating, and destroying. Despite stylistic differences, each system reflects a basic code describing the mandalic qualities of thought, expression, and action that need to be selectively wielded on the heroic spiritual journey through life. As in Navajo mandalas, the meaning and color symbolism in Tibetan mandalas change or move much in the way a dial on a telephone does. Far from being haphazard, the variable positions of colors around the mandala's circle signify particular qualities of mind, energy, and action appropriate to a deity and lineage of spiritual knowledge and practice. Consider the most complex of tantric mandalas, that of the tutelary Lord of the Wheel of Time, Tunki Korlo Kalachakra. Its code is identical to one of the Navajo San mandala's heroic potency schemes: black, yellow, blue, and pink. The colors of the four quarters of Kalachakra's palace at the mandala's center mirror those of the indwelling male deity's four faces: east, south, west, and north: black, blue, red, yellow, and white. The Eastern Quarter's aspect of form and consciousness embodies obstacle and ego-destroying energy. This is signified by the blue-black color of the deity's skin and fierce Eastern face. Such darkness and power are usually encountered at the northern quadrant of Tibetan normal potency mandalas, but the Wheel of Time mandala scheme is one of heroic potency. Accordingly, what is usually the south-north axis shifts to the primary east-west position, and the usual white-red colors of east-west appear in the north and south. In this way, the eastern blue-black face and western yellow face reinforce the energies of destruction and enrichment, the major complementary qualities of this deity. They are also the colors of the bodies of the personas Lord of the Wheel of Time and Mother of Diversity, who united compose the full tantric deity. The four faces of both deities have fierce demeanors. This powerful quality is consistent with the world-shaping prophecy from the Kalachakra Tantra's place of refuge, the Pure Land of Shambhala. It tells that an army of spiritual warriors will issue forth, led by the great warrior king Gesar, in order to rout enemies threatening the teachings. Thus, Kalachakra's wisdom energy is of a conquering type that blasts through, for totally altruistic reasons, obstacles to the enlightenment of all beings throughout time and space, and the color code of the mandala reflects this powerful state of being. Closing the circle. The last variation in the mandala code requiring our attention is the symbolism involved in closing the circle. Through exchanging colors, a sense of establishing an inviolable sacred space is created, and in the process the real and ideal realms of existence are woven together into a seamless whole. Consider the important sand mandala of the Tibetan tutelary deity known as the Secret Assembly, Sangwadupa Guya Samaja. In it, a white Dharma wheel, generally found at the center of a tantric mandala, is exchanged with a blue thunderbolt scepter, normally found in the eastern quadrant, because the deity being invoked is associated with the eastern Buddha family. It is only proper that its symbol, a thunderbolt, be shifted to the mandala's center. But the shift also signifies something more profound, the union of relative, ordinary, and absolute ideal reality. This is subtly indicated by the reversal of colored backgrounds between the center and eastern quarter in the mandala. Thus, instead of east, one's relative state of affairs being blue, it is shown as being white, while the normally white background of the center, the ideal state of voidness, becomes blue. Lama Anagarika Govinda has cleared away much confusion surrounding this process by pointing out that such cross-coloring represents the return of the center's absolute wisdom back to the realm of conventional bodily form, which is the East. Simultaneously, the East's mirror-like wisdom, generated by the purified faculty of form, shifts to the center of the mandala, indicating that the ultimate nature of form, phenomena, issues out of the same stuff as does pure awareness. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. In visualizations associated with this type of mandala, the blue Buddha of the East is imagined as emitting a white light from the psychic drop at his heart center. This is the white light of awareness's absolute wisdom. Similarly, the white Buddha of the central field is visualized as emitting a blue light of form's mirror-like wisdom from the incandescent drop at his heart center. In this way, bringing absolute wisdom into the world of form, the spiritual pilgrim becomes empowered to participate in the real world as a more integrated and happier individual. The mandala process becomes complete, the circle closes. Likewise, I believe that the need to close the sacred circle through the unity of the real and the ideal is the underlying meaning behind the placing of the black and white clouds in the white dawn and black night skies of the philosophy of the Navajo teaching mandala. See Chapter 9. The clouds in the southern and western quarters are the same color as their cardinal light mists, but it is only at the natural antipodes of the sunwise cycle, the beginning place of the dawn and the ending place of darkest night, that the exchange of colors and closure take place. Unlike the Tibetan tantric scheme, the Navajo's mandala assumes, rather than actively involves, the center as an element in the model of the ideal reality. It is understood that the center is the summation of the energies and ideal thoughts, expressions, and actions of the four directions. So in the Navajo system, the exchange and closure naturally occur between the northern and eastern quarters, not center and east as in the Tibetan scheme, but the underlying meanings are identical. The journey through the days, seasons, and phases of one's psychic life find its end in a heightened sense of the beginning, where the ideal and real become one. Another instance of closure in the Mandala's code, indicating the unity of real and ideal self and cosmos, lies in the meaning of the two axes comprising its four quadrants. The use of the ritual basket during Navajo weddings illustrates this exceptionally well. The confirmation of the bond of marriage takes place around the wedding basket, whose corn batter contents are blessed, then eaten by the couple in a ritualized manner. Corn, of course, is life. The central portion of the basket signifies life, the life of all the people, whose numbers will now increase due to this marriage. The center of the basket, surrounded by woven symbols of rain and sacred mountains, is also a place of spiritual rebirth, physical nourishment, and psychophysical strength. In order to bless the cornmeal batter, corn pollen is sprinkled, mandala-like, over the basket. First it is sprinkled east to west, next a line is sprinkled south to north, and finally a circle is sprinkled clockwise around it all, beginning in the east. In the Navajo mandala, the east-west axis is the vector of thought and thinking. The white eastern wind is that which directs life, and the yellow western wind that which provides thinking. South-north is the axis of action, the vector of practical involvement in the world. South is the blue wind which gives power of movement, and north the black wind when we carry out our plans. Similarly, in the Tibetan mandala, east-west is the axis of introspection. Thought is initiated in the crystalline, lightning light of the East, and its meaning and lack of self-existence is contemplated in the meditative orange-red light of the West. The south-north axis is one of involvement in the affairs of the world. Action is initiated in the yellow light of the South by the engine of one's feeling of equality with others, who are thereby enriched by one's glowing sun-like nature. This enlightened involvement in the real world is completed by the North's sword of all-accomplishing action that harnesses the dark powers of the night in the service of light. In both transformative traditions, the east-west vector allows the body-mind to journey into the ideal world of the mind, while the south-north plane balances it by guiding its participation in the real world. This symbolic unity of the real and ideal is a fundamental universal of the circle of the spirit. Where the two axes intersect arises the quintessence, the fifth essence of universal mind and energy. Tibetans call this the Nyingpo Na, the fivefold heart. It is sometimes symbolized as rays of rainbow light radiating from the heart center, chest of a Buddha. At its basis is the transcendent wisdom of the clear light mind, powered by the fundamental life wind. Likewise, the Navajo speak of a universal mind with full knowledge of beauty and empowered by holy wind. At its basis are four elemental colored winds merging in and out of a fifth multicolored or glittering wind. Looking back at the circle of the Spirit's design, one now may see it with clearer eyes. Its outer perimeter defines an integrated system of body, mind, and cosmos in which the worlds of real and ideal are one. The mandala's crossed axes are in symbolic interchange of colors at the beginning/ending point, remind Navajos and Tibetans of this inseparable unity of realities and of their place at the center of the world of sentience and power. Knowing this, how can we ever again think of the flow of the day, the seasons of the year, the progress of a lifetime, or the spinning of galaxies and the movements of the body-mind in the same habitual manner? The Great Dawning. When you see a Navajo sand painting, there will always be a surrounding figure with an opening in the east so that the new spirit can pour in. When the Buddha sat under the bo tree, he faced east, the direction of the rising sun. Joseph Campbell. It is appropriate from the Navajo and Tibetan standpoints to end this general discussion of the code of their circles of the spirit by returning again to the beginning of the universal cycle, the eastern quarter of the mandala. The area left open by the rainbow goddess in Navajo sand painting is always at the eastern quarter. This is the direction from which the holy people come and go. Similarly, in the Navajo ritual basket, the circular pattern is broken by a space going from the edge to the center. It is the eastern pathway into the heart of the basket's mandala. The East, as the portal of power and spiritual life, is carefully symbolized in the Great Seal of the Navajo Nation. As in sand paintings, its circular rainbow ring is broken at the east. Here it is shown at the top. A ring of flint arrowheads, essential protective tools of the spiritual warrior, surrounds the rainbow. Within the circle's eastern quarter shines the sun. It rises over the eastern mountain, shown with the other three sacred cardinal peaks. Within their sacred circle graze various domestic animals. Below them are two corn stalks. All are sources of life to the Navajo, and all are enriched by the rays of the rising sun. East is always the starting and ending point of things Navajo. When traditional Navajos arise, all thoughts turn toward the east. They exit the door of the circular mandala-patterned hogan into the dawn light. They breathe in the dawn and offer daily prayers, sacred songs, and pinches of corn pollen to the deities who are expressions of the dawn. These include Talking God, Dawn Woman, Rock Crystal Boy and Girl, and White Corn Boy. Thus each Navajo begins a new day knowing that the mind, voice, and body of the holy people are his or her own mind, voice, and body. In a conversation with me and a Navajo chanter, a Tibetan Lama observed that for his people, East brings good luck, longevity. East is the beginning place of the home, where the door should be. It is the beginning place of the mandala. At this point, the Navajo chanter turned to me and nodded with distinct approval, since East is how each Navajo hogan must be sighted. East is the place of good fortune, of everlasting life, according to beauty. East is the beginning place in the Navajo mandala. For Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, it was crucial to have an eastward orientation in one's life. He taught that there are two kinds of people in the world: sunrise people, having the great eastern sun vision of life, and sunset vision people. Sunrise people seek out the upsurging energy of the rising sun in their daily lives. They proceed bright-eyed and with a bright outlook. Because they synchronize with the dawn, they are in synchrony with the energies of the different phases of the day and night, and by extension with those of the seasons of their lives. Such a simple awareness and pattern of living is the marvelous treasure of the sunrise people. Unfortunately, this perfect logic eludes the sunset people. Trungpa Rinpoche saw their reality as full of endless struggle, obstacles, and unfulfilled promise. They orient to the Occident of things. Their beginning point is the downward cycle of the day and of their lives. Whereas the sunset time is an essential part of the mandala of living, it must belong to the third movement of one's day and sense of order in the world. Only under very controlled circumstances should one orient one's personal mandala to this direction. Otherwise, it is the starting point of one's cycle of reality. It will lead to premature dissipation and confusion. One therefore must always orient to what Trungpa called the Great Eastern Sun, the prime symbol of the spiritual warrior tradition of ancient Asia. There is no better Tibetan symbol of the Great Eastern Sun than their own national flag. Like the Great Seal of the Navajo Nation, the Tibetan flag symbolizes much more than nationhood. It is a symbol of a state of mind and spirit. Here, a brilliant yellow rising sun sends off alternating rays of blue and red over a white snow mountain. On the mountain's glaciers stand a male and female snow lion. All the symbols in the Tibetan flag originate from or are illuminated by the Great Eastern Sun. Like the Navajos, so too do most old-time Tibetans rise before the dawn. They clean their rooms, rearrange the altar, filling the water offering bowls, adding butter to the butter lamp, and lighting incense. Each Tibetan also creates the cosmos anew by mentally constructing an offering mandala as a gift to his or her spiritual teachers and tutelary deities. One also may give offerings to the protectors of the faith and to Ozer Changma, goddess of the dawn. In doing one's daily practices of prayers, chants, and visualizations, Duthop Sadhana, one enters through the powers of the imagination, the eastern door of the mandala of the particular tantric tutelary. In the process, one becomes each of its emanations at each of the quarters of the mandala. Such is the Tibetan preparation at the first turn of the wheel of the day. By these acts at the dawn, Tibetans, like the Navajo, are set on their daily rounds in a harmonious manner. The personal circle becomes synchronized with the universal circle. Ordinary and ideal realities become as one. The day and one's thoughts, expressions, and actions resonate with the pattern of the mandala. Journey to the primordial ground. The Navajo and Tibetan mandala view of self and cosmos prepares them for the journey into the ideal reality, or primordial ground. The journey and goal are recreated in the teachings and mandalas of all the major Navajo and Tibetan spiritual lineages. Their mandalas are spiritual draftmen's schematic diagrams of an ideal place populated by deities, ideal beings. By being imbued with holiness through various ritual procedures in partnership with the powers of the imagination, the sand mandalas transcend their designs to become sacred realities, versions of the ideal state abiding at the primordial ground of beauty and the void. Navajo sand mandala realities. In the Navajo tradition, the sand paintings depict holy people acting in the sacred world. Interacting with them in the myth, but never shown in sand, are certain of the earth surface walkers. Such a man or woman, youth or maiden, is the chantway's heroine, and a model for the Navajo to emulate. The spiritual heroine is a holy person-to-be who will successfully end his or her quest for sacred knowledge by becoming empowered with Diyin and taking the form of one of the generalized blue-faced Yei tutelaries known as Hachbad female and Hachbaka male. By deeply identifying with the sand mandala's holy people and with the spiritual heroines the ones sung over a person or persons for whose direct benefit the sand mandala rite is being held, begins to take on the ideal thoughts and energies that are in turn aspects of the mind and energy of the cosmos at large. Navajos create their compelling schematics of spiritual reality by sprinkling fine grains of naturally colored sand upon a smooth palette of clean, locally acquired sand that is usually salmon or beige in color. The generally 4 or more sand painters, under the direction of the chanter, let flow a thin stream of sand grains from between their thumb and their index and middle fingers. In some cases, flower petals, corn pollen, and even powdered jewels are used. This is Lika'a, where they come and go. It is the sacred arena into which the empowered holy people arrive and in which they interact with the participants in the rite, just as the spiritual heroine met the divinities during the chantway's formative times. After the powers of the holy people are invoked, brought into the sand painting, the one sung over, whose body mind they will transform into reality, is brought psychologically and physically into the center of the mandala. In this sense, the Navajo sand painting is a ritual osmotic membrane in whose ideal reality the holy people mingle with those yet to be empowered people for whom the rite is being done. Depending on the number of sand painters that are available and the fee paid by the family of the one sung over, the sand painting can take either linear, single line form or radial mandala form. The latter is preferred, although it is not necessary for invoking the powers and blessings of the holy people. When the sand painting is done in mandala form, the painters sit at the periphery and work from the center out to the four directions. In this way, pulverized colored rock slowly becomes transformed into an altar of the cosmos without and the universe within. Into this symbolized ideal reality first came a spiritual heroine who either voluntarily embarked or was compelled on a heroic journey in order to acquire sacred wisdom for his or her own sake and that of the people. Perhaps the most eloquent example of the sacred journey of a Navajo to the mandala's primordial ground can be found in an episode from the biography of the Nightway Rite's supernatural hero, the Dreamer. The dreamer and his vision of the whirling logs. Of all the sand paintings that may be done during a Nightway rite, the Silniole, or whirling logs, sand mandala best describes the dreamer's long sought after goal in the heart of the Nightway's sacred reality. In order to understand fully the meaning of this vision in sand and in the imagination, we must join the dreamer on his visionary journey to the lake of whirling waters, where the whirling logs vision was beheld. The dreamer was determined to reach the narrow canyon-locked lake of the whirling waters. Its image, painted on a cloud, had been shown to him by the Yeis during the first Nightway ceremony at White House in Saying, Canyon de Chelly. Somewhat foolhardily, he fashioned for the purpose a leaky boat in the form of a hollowed-out cottonwood log. He set out on the sacred San Juan River, but the boat quickly sank and he almost drowned. Fortunately, the youth was rescued by the holy people. They were reluctant to aid him on his journey, but the dreamer succeeded in convincing them to help him. The holy people built for him a sturdier log-boat fitted with quartz crystal windows. The several conducted him along the river's dangerous rapids and turns by means of long staffs. After negotiating many obstacles en route, including a confrontation with the powerful water creature Te'i Hu'utsodi, whom he placated with spiritual offerings, the dreamer's logboat broke free of the river. It entered into the first of two lakes, the second being his final goal. His boat circled the lake sunwise 4 times, then landed at the southern shore. Exiting the boat, the dreamer entered the lodge of the fringe-mouthed Yeis. These holy people's bodies were painted half red and half blue. They had stag-like movements, helmets of thunderclouds, and lived in the land and waters. This is the lodge of the water fringe-mouths. After the dreamer viewed a painting of the fringe mouths, which was done on a cloud, a fringe mouth and a Hotchpod goddess consort entered the lodge to the sounds of a drum and rattle. Suddenly the dreamer collapsed on the ground in a violent seizure. He was restored to well-being by the fringe mouths through songs, ritual, and incense smoke, and was taught how to cure his people in a similar manner. Then he was instructed how to imitate the holy people's cloud paintings by using colored sand. This done, the dreamer re-entered his longboat. After circling the lake 4 times, he beached at the north shore, where he entered the lodge of Talking God and Calling God. There he beheld a great cloud painting similar to that done on the 7th day of today's Nightway rite, and enacted by dancers on the final 9th night. It showed 2 lines of dancing Yeis. The south males were led by Talking God, while the 6 females came with Water Sprinkler God. The dreamer was taught at that time how to make special herbal medicines for use in the Nightway. The dreamer again entered the logboat and floated down river through a narrow channel in the red sandstone cliffs. Soon he came to the hidden lake of the whirling waters, which had no outlet and no bottom. At the lake's center floated 2 crossed spruce tree logs. They rotated sunwise around the lake's center rather than spinning around their own center. Seated on each end of the cross was a pair of Yeis, 1 male and 1 female, 4 pairs in all. 4 directionally colored corn plants grew out of the sacred lake. The log cross spiraled ever wider around the lake, which was now enveloped in rain. It eventually landed on the western shore, whereupon the 8 Yeis disembarked and proceeded to their lodge. The dreamer followed, and he too entered the lodge. There he observed the whirling logs painting on a cloud spread on the ground. It depicted the scene that he had just witnessed. When one of the Yeis asked him why he had come, he responded, "I came here, my grandfather, to see your picture and to learn your medicines and knowledge." And the dreamer was given sacred medicine with which to treat the earth's surface walkers, prepared by the virginal children of the log-sitting divinities. After viewing another painting and singing many songs, they all left the lodge and proceeded to the cross of logs floating near the shore. It was now emitting flashes of lightning. The first pair of divinities took their places on the western end of the logs. Then the dreamer mounted the cross via a short rainbow bridge from the shoreline. He sat down between the male and female Yeis at the western quarter of the log cross, as the other 3 pairs took their places in the north, east, and south. The 9 of them floated out to the center of the sacred lake on their lightning-studded log cross and circled there 4 times. From there they proceeded to the shoreline of the lake, where they had begun their circular journey. After leaving the lake, the dreamer learned how to grow the 4 kinds of corn he had beheld. With seeds in hand, he returned to his people in the company of several of the holy people. They traveled to the earth's surface realm on a short rainbow. They landed at the home of the dreamer's family and shrouded in a cloud. On their arrival, the tutelaries spoke approvingly to the dreamer. "You have brought home with you good white corn, good blue corn, good yellow corn, and good corn of all kinds, variegated corn. You have brought back good pollen, good clouds, good black mist, good lightning, good rainbows, good male rain, fierce downpours, good female rain, gentle regular rains. You have brought the medicines of the holy ones, their pictures, rites, and songs of the farm. Such are the good things you have brought back with you. You now know all the mysteries of the Diyin. Hold in your memory the pictures, rites, and songs they gave you, and teach them to others." Then the holy people, Talking God and Water Sprinkler, who had been sent by Calling God to accompany the dreamer to his earth's surface home, suddenly disappeared with a click, and thus ends the dreamer's sacred journey. In the course of his visionary journey, the dreamer attained spiritual empowerment as a healer. He was transformed into beauty by being cured of a nervous system ailment and by sitting on the log cross as it spun around the center of the sacred lake. In this way, he entered the mandala of the tutelary deities who embody the primary energies and sacred knowledge of the Nightway's ideal reality, its primordial ground. With the help of the fully empowered holy people, the dreamer brought a great integrated vision of the sacred world back to his people through the Nightway's narrative and rites and in the sand paintings that reenact his visionary journey. He returned with the fruits of a psychic and physical harvest, the knowledge, medicine, and blessings of the holy people, one of whom he himself was in the process of becoming. The return by the dreamer from the ideal to the ordinary human plane, bearing sacred knowledge and ritual know-how, is the Navajo sign of the greatest achievement of a spiritual heroine. The Whirling Logs Sand Mandala. Knowing its inner meaning and role in the dreamer's spiritual journey, one can fully appreciate this Nightway Vision's place where the holy people come and go, the whirling logs, and painting itself. The whirling logs and mandala, see page 166, stretches several yards in diameter, almost to the walls of the ceremonial hogan, on a bed of fine sand. It spreads out, too, on a plane intermediate between earth and sky, a microcosm painted in beauty of the universe. The sand mandala also perches halfway between the two realities of the ordinary, by its sandy form, and the ideal, by what it symbolizes and contains after being consecrated. It is the place of what Gladys Reichard called spiritual osmosis between the powers of the holy people and the feet, hands, body, mind, and voice of humanity. The sand painting becomes the arena for the absorption of one into the other. The powers of the Ye'is, who are designed in sand and invented in by song and prayer, enter the one sung over as he or she sits on the western arm of the log cross made of sand, just as the dreamer did on his vision log. And through the powers of the imagination, the one sung over begins to transcend the state of body-mind that is in disharmony with the cosmos. The one sung over thus enters by way of the sand mandala the ideal reality of the dreamer and the holy people. The crossed logs of sand, surrounded and protected by a rainbow goddess, symbolize the process of balancing and centering within an ideal cosmos. The logs emanate from and project toward the four quarters of a sacred world in beauty. Little wonder, then, that the cross within a circle is a widespread symbol among Native Americans, as the mandala is among Asians. In the actual sand painting, the sand logs intersect at a small bowl of water, placed there to signify the lake of whirling waters. Between the logs at the semi-cardinal points grow sandy figures of the four sacred plants. They are colored according to the basic directional scheme, sunwise beginning in the southeast, blue, white, blue, yellow, black. Their white roots extend into the lake. The lake is the hub, the font of the directional elements and powers that are embodied in the four pairs of male and female Ye'is riding the cross of logs. The 8 tutelaries are the unity of male and female energies and body-mind qualities that compose the Navajo's directional teachings. Visually, the logs and deities that create the swastika figure, a symbol of ultimate union. The whirling logs and mandala signifies a cosmos in motion that exists simultaneously within one's own body-mind. The cross and its holy riders are the attributes and elements of this ideal universe at the primordial ground, and it is set into motion on the sacred lake through a vision by a spiritual hero who becomes one with the one sung over and with the chanter himself. This deep identification is supported through various physical actions by the chanter and his assistants toward the one sung over, who sits upon the mandala's western quarter facing eastward. At various points in the rite, a masked Ye'i figure abruptly enters the hogan and begins treating the one sung over. The masked assistant to the chanter wets his hands in the liquid from a medicine bowl placed in the outstretched hands of the encircling rainbow goddess. He touches with his wet and outspread hands a part of the body of a divinity in the painting, such as its head, then touches the crown of the head of the one sung over, and similarly the other main energy points of the body. The powers of the Ye'is are transferred to the patient just as they had been given the dreamer during his journey to the lake of the whirling waters. The sand mandala is the symbolic medium for restoring the patient to a state of beauty. For all intents and purposes, the one sung over has become the dreamer through the partnership of his or her imagination, the sand painting, and the powerful ambiance created by the songs, prayers, and masked figures, as well as pre-knowledge of the meaning of the rite. Like the dreamer, the one sung over has endured a long and difficult transition from a flawed, ordinary state of body-mind into the ideal state in which the holy people abide. The one sung over has become restocked with Diyin, the spiritual power of universal mind, and thus restored to beauty. This process is sealed by ritually destroying the sand painting after others in attendance have had a chance to bless themselves by placing particles of sand from the bodies of the deities onto the appropriate parts of their own bodies. The Navajo will tell you that the sand mandala is destroyed so that its power cannot be misused, and so that the disturbed state of the sand painting does not displease the deities. Since the sand is imbued with power of the holy people, it must be deposited by the chanter's assistants in the direction of power and protection, north of the Hogan, once the painting is obliterated. Seen on a more primal level, the painting will continue to serve an important purpose by its very destruction. By this point in the rite, the transformation of the patient's body-mind is already well underway. If, however, the patient were to rely too heavily on a permanent rendering of the ideal realm, rather than his or her own memory and imagination, then the transformation might be minimized. Perhaps that is why the holy people refused to give the dreamer the permanent mandalas that were painted on clouds. Tibetan sand mandalas realities. The world of the dreamer and the way in which it is visually presented is readily understood by the Tibetan. Tibetans and Navajos know that we exist in a single reality that seamlessly unites self and other, microcosm and macrocosm. Although we are usually oblivious to this universal truth, they know therefore that the forces operating in the great cosmos beyond us are identical to those affecting our very thoughts and breaths. These forces and their relationship to each other are symbolized anthropomorphically as tutelaries, called yidam in Tibetan. The divinities live in ideal realities and relationships symbolized as mandalas. In turn, these mandalas of ideal empowered beings are interrelated to all other mandala realities, since they form out of the emptiness of the void and as easily dissolve back into it. Like the Navajo sand mandala, the tantric mandala, particularly the sand variety, is the arena into which the tutelaries are called so as to effect a psychophysical transformation in the practitioner. She or he takes on the ideal qualities and wisdom energies of the glowing central deity who resides at the still point, the mandala's core, and whose emanations fill the rest of the directional space around it. Tibetans use their term for mandala to describe any balanced, ideal system of ideas and energies. As we have seen, Tibetans envision our ideal world reality to be a mandala, and therefore the proper offering to give mentally to ideal beings, such as deities and lamas. Likewise, the place at which a ceremony is held is considered a mandala once it has been ritually purified of obstacles and a circle of protection has been marked out around it. This is an essential early step in preparations for grand tantric initiations, such as that of the deity lord of the Wheel of Time, Kala Chakra. Mandalas can be garlands of spinning light or rings of spinning mantric syllables. The sun and moon are mandalas. Mandalas can be our own body's subtle physicality, its patterns of wind energy and mind's light. And of course the cycles of the day, seasons, world, epochs, and eons are in their own way mandalas. But the form we most often recognize as mandala is that which is utilized in formal tantric practice to transform the body-mind. This mandala depicts a deity's body, emanations, palatial abode with grounds, and various rings of spiritual barriers around it. Most important to remember is that this is all an expression of the central ideal being with whom the practitioner/patient is trying to identify. The physical proportions of the mandala are mathematically determined. This sets up a proper vibratory resonance that reinforces the colors and images painted within it. It is said that simply viewing a mandala without any knowledge of its meaning is sufficient to communicate a quality of consciousness and subtle power. That a well-made tantric mandala, as a Navajo sand painting, can draw one's attention into its center as iron filings to a magnet is clear evidence of its special character. The mandala is a 2- or 3-dimensional schematic of the glowing rainbow-colored palace and reality of a tutelary deity. In its rooms, on its balconies, by its doorways, and on its grounds often live other idealized beings, emanations of the central deity. It is metaphysically situated at the center of an idealized world system, at the intersection of an enormous crossed double thunderbolt scepter, itself floating above the summit of the sacred central mountain. These are the basic features of the Indo-Tibetan mandala, expressing the idealized living conditions appropriate to a deity. Metaphysically, it signifies the inner sanctum, the ideal realm of body-mind. In the palace, its grounds and its inhabitants are of the ideal state of being, then they must be adequately protected from that not yet ideal state of reality of the real world. To accomplish this, several rings of protection are constructed around the sacred precincts. See Chapter 9 for a description. Because the practitioner begins the journey of becoming ideal from outside the mandala, the various rings of protection are set up as a necessary barrier to be surmounted before the consciousness can begin to merge with the ideal state symbolized by the paradise of the deity. The ordinary and ideal realms of reality are, at the beginning of tantric practice, perceived as being separate. The mandala represents the interface between these two realities. The side of the mandala is the ideal reality, or the inside of the mandala is the ideal reality. The space around the mandala is our flawed state of being, yet simultaneously the void out of which all arises. The Tibetan sand mandala is much like its Navajo counterpart, a place where the deities come and go. It also serves as an osmotic membrane in which the body-mind of the beneficiary of the rite can merge with the characteristics of ideal beings, signified in sand particles, and like the Navajo sand mandala, the Tibetan one creates a sacred universe for the duration of a ritual event. It too must be in a form readily destroyable at the ceremony's end. Such destruction is essential because the ideal must be realized within one's own body-mind, not kept external from it. So the distinction between the two interpenetrating realities must be obliterated. Otherwise the awareness will attach to the material expression, i.e. the physical mandala, and not to its deity's ideal qualities, which are best experienced in the realm of memory and the imagination. Once one has entered into deep identification with the mandala's central deity and his or her energy of awareness and wisdom, the return stage of the mandala journey begins. Behind this is the bodhisattva ideal, in which one returns to the world with newfound understanding in order to serve others who are on their own spiritual journeys. One exits the yidam or tutelari's mandala through its now yielding barriers and descends from the mandala universe's heights to rejoin those yet to be empowered with enlightened wisdom energy. Through practice of the mandala and its deity's daily sadhana, one comes to understand that there is no actual separation between the two realities of the ideal and the real. By mentally abiding in the ideal, one becomes empowered with a higher level of awareness for acting effectively within this world. Yoginis and other accomplished practitioners return from their meditations to our conventional world with such a new view. They see all people, animals, and even non-corporeal beings, spirits, as yidam tutelary divinities. They sense the ordinary world's energies, actions, objects, and sounds as ideal phenomena. Indeed, they see the world totally as a mandala, a samsaric and suffering one, to be sure, but a mandala full of possibilities of harmony and enlightenment for all. One of the most profound mandala descriptions of the unity of the two realities comes from the ancient Tibetan guidebook to consciousness, mistranslated as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It might better be called the Book of Buddhahood. When it is recited at the side of the deceased or studied while living, it serves as a step-by-step guide to the consciousness for the journey into the mandala world of the deities and hopefully the state of the primordial Buddha beyond death and rebirth. What is most significant about the mandala visions in the Book of the Dead is that they are not otherworldly images, they are expressions of the inner psychic world. To realize the deeper meaning of the mandala, let's experience here a small part of the ultimate spiritual journey, the heroic path through death. The recently deceased person's subtle awareness continues to inhabit the body for several days. During the early part of this period, it perceives a halo of rainbow-colored light, out of which 42 peaceful deities issue. The person reading the instructions on the death passage to the recently deceased then says, "O nobly born, these realms of the deities are not come from somewhere outside thyself. They come from within the 4 divisions of thy heart, which including its center make the 5 directions. They issue from within there and shine upon thee. The deities too are not come from somewhere else. They exist from eternity within the faculties of thine own intellect. Know them to be of that nature." This sense of the mandalas having issued from the psychic center of the body and simultaneously from the wisdom energies of the cosmos, the divinities of the void, is the basic purpose behind the yogini's visualizations of becoming one with the tutelary deity. The Tibetan master Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche described this process as reintegrating the individual's energy with that of the universe. Kamtrul Rinpoche's dream journey to Shambhala. One of the most effective ways of entering the ideal reality of the mandala is by way of the vision or dream. Like the Navajo dreamer, Tibetans have celebrated visionaries who transcend the illusory confines of body and walking consciousness to enter the ideal reality. One of the most significant contemporary dream journeys was taken by the Tibetan Lama Garje Kamtrul Rinpoche. His clarified vision dream, called Milam, took his consciousness and subtle body to the sacred mandala-shaped land of Shambhala, site of the original Wheel of Time mandala. Here is Kamtrul Rinpoche's dream. In 1948, while traveling through the vastness of Tibet, Kamtrul Rinpoche passed the night near a sacred mountain. During the early morning, the period when dreams are not tainted by thoughts and events from the previous day, he began his visionary journey. Rinpoche was visited by a beautiful Himalayan-looking girl. She woke him and asked him to come with her, saying that his Lama Guru awaited him and that Rinpoche was the person with the right karma at this moment to take this journey. He resisted her request, but she insisted, explaining that his doubts only impeded him. When he continued to resist, she called his attention to her hands, feet, and face, in which she had a total of 7 eyes. "I am," she exclaimed, "Pakma Chendunma, the noble one with 7 eyes, a form of white Tara." Abruptly, she snapped her fingers, and Rinpoche felt his physical body melt away. She shrank in size, although his thoughts remained clear. She then picked him up and swallowed him. After passing through one of her psychic nerve channels, he encountered another goddess, exactly like the first, who became his guide. Rinpoche was taken on an incredible journey through the goddess's psychic nervous system's channels and energy nodes, chakras, and was introduced to the deities residing there. Both Lama and guide then exited through the larger goddess's reproductive organ, and the tiny goddess guided the mentally clarified Lama into the sky and on a tour of the world from above.